Hello and welcome to another free code session. My name is Jason Bach. I don't remember anything of what I was doing, and I am completely confused. I haven't done a recording, I think, in over a month, and it's been a nice break. I had a almost 2-week break over the holidays, over the winter holidays, and I literally did. I don't want to say I didn't do anything on my computer, but I didn't do any programming, didn't do anything related to software development. Played a whole bunch of Halo Infinite, which was a lot of fun. It did stink at one point because I put in about 30 hours into the campaign, and I've been flying. I was flying all around and looking all around for stuff while trying to finish the campaign. And then I got to a point where I got to a cutscene and the game crashed. And every time I tried to load my campaign from that point on, it would crash. I don't know why. So put in a support ticket to 343, and the resolution was uninstall Halo Infinite and reinstall it. And then it worked. I don't know, so whatever. But eventually I was able to finish it. I was fairly close to the end. If you have played Halo Infinite, there was a point where something bad happens to Echo. I don't want to give away too many spoilers. That's where it ran into problems. So in any event, I played a lot of that. I still want to go around and try to find everything. There are also some Easter eggs. One that I found, which this is a spoiler, purely by accident, I found the 8-bit Halo Infinite game, which was hilarious. I've seen some people find the sandwich with the grunts around it. I don't know what the hell that means, but that is just bizarre. So yeah, it's a great game. I would say give it a B. The storyline in terms of how it ended, I still don't like that they have completely ignored the flood. That's what really, got me into Halo, because it was so unexpected. Hopefully, if they continue on with where I think they're going to go with the Endless, and that's not too much of a spoiler either, because you hear about the Endless for at some point. We'll see. But yeah, good game. The world, in terms of just being able to fly around, walk around, look for things, is definitely. I remember playing the recent Tomb Raider games, the remakes that were done around like 2013 to 2017. I don't remember the exact times and dates, but I remember playing those, and I really enjoyed them because it was kind of this open world. You could go around and look for things, and even though once you finish the main story, you could still go back and try to be a completionist and find everything. And I really enjoyed it. I liked trying to solve the puzzles and look for stuff. And this feels kind of like the same thing. So anyway, from a programming standpoint, I left with, I want to create this project, Auto Deconstruct, and also as a way to kind of show people how to build the source generators. I don't know how much of that I'm going to really accomplish, but we're going to keep trying to build it, and that's what I'm going to continue on with today. One of the funny things I found out is, after I did my last episode, is I don't remember where I ended, but I built basically the main project and the tests, and then I added an editor config, and I just hit enter on it, and well, now it's bringing up as a text file. But if you say just open with the I guess the editor, no, not that. Well, now I can't get it to happen because I wanted to actually show the not the actual, not the source code editor. See, now this is going to be weird because I wanted to actually show like the editor config editor, and it's not doing that. So usually I open it up with the source text because I just find it easier to do that. But I'm like, no, I don't want you to do that. Yeah, and I just did it before I started recording, and it's still happening. There's a bug that basically, if you just have projects, at least this is what I tried. If you have projects, but you don't actually have any code, you don't have any CS files in the projects, you'll get this error that pops up. And I'll try to put a link in the description of the issue that I raised to show this, and it's not been closed, so I think it's still come up as an issue. Once you add a CS file, then if you open up the actual editor for editor config, it works. It's just bizarre. Like, it has some weird relation to, do you actually have code in your projects? I don't know. I don't get it. But anyway, so we're here. What we need to do now is actually create a generator. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for, that generator thing. And I've got another project open here that I'm going to keep going back to and referring to because I've done a lot of work there, and it just makes sense to use that as kind of a template in a way. One of the other things before I get too far into this is, one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is this fact of, might as well get to it. I've talked about this before, is, not editing, testing source generators is really kind of a pain, because I have unit tests here that will actually go off and test the source generators. And I use some libraries from Microsoft to kind of assist with that a little bit. And that's fine. That works, and that's good. But it actually is easier to have tests that are like integration tests, where you just say, I'm actually literally using the source generator as it's meant to be used, where I have somewhere here like a map to destination. Okay. And that's the intent, is to actually have this do the generated code. Like if I have 12 here, is it? Yeah, there. So you actually see the generated code. But the problem is once this project loads that other project in a way such that the generators will run, it will keep it blocked. And so any updates you do, you have to basically restart Visual Studio. If you've seen past videos that I've done, you know that I lament about that a lot. One thought I've had is seeing if there's a way to use what's called a solution filter. This is something that people don't know a lot about, but, and I'm forgetting off the top of my head. Yeah, I think if you remove some projects, add some projects or whatever, and then you save a solution filter, it's an SLN. There's a special extension to it. And so what that is it's a file that is based on a solution, but it only brings in certain projects. And part of the, one of the main reasons this solution filter approach is there is because if you have solutions that have like 50, 100, 200 projects, historically it's been really hard to get those to compile in any meaningful time frame. And so the solution filter is this idea of, well, you have the solution, but we're going to filter to only a small amount of projects, and then you can just work on those, and hopefully, you can part and parcel your solution into these filter files so that you can only work on certain parts. At some point, you have to compile and debug or run all your tests and everything as normal, but that way it makes it a little bit faster. What I'm thinking of for this case is to have a filter that doesn't have the integration tests put in. And so you'll just build, run tests, everything like you normally would, and that all works. But then you could go into, like if I go here, I could go into the terminal and say .NET test, and then give the solution name, and then it would run all the tests, including the integration one that would have to reload all of the tests, or reload that generated the assembly that has the generators in it, and then that would just magically update and work. The downfall of this is that if I want to go into the integration test project to actually add more tests, I now have to open the solution. I have to bring in the, and I don't think if you actually unload the solution and reload the solution, I've never tried that either. That might be an approach. I'm not sure. Some way to get this so that it's easier to actually do tests with source generators, because that's just been a problem, and I don't particularly enjoy it. Anyway, we haven't even added a file yet. So let's go into here, and we have a generator which implements Incremental Generator. Why is the font looks like really small? I don't know why. And then let's go to this screen that takes like still 2 minutes to load. I don't know why. That's 12. I guess, okay. Maybe I'm getting old and it looks too old, it's too small to me. So what do we want to call this class? Auto Deconstruct Generator. Deconstruct Generator. Naming is hard. Naming is always hard. Did I actually put in a name for that here? I think I just always talk about having a generator, but I never even specify a name for it. Well, naming is hard, so we're just going to do this. We're going to punt and say auto deconstruct generator. Okay. And load. Just, yeah, there you go. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to load. And now just gather your suggestions, take all the sweet time in the world, because just because I'm recording, it's going to take forever. Okay. So we're going to have a public sealed. I think that's what I've been doing over here in inline mapping. Yes. Auto deconstruct generator. It implements incremental generator, and you don't know what that is. What you do now, we also need to put the attribute generator on it because reasons, okay? And we need to implement the interface. So, and again, I haven't really done anything on this for over a month. So if my coding skills are a little suspect, it's because I haven't done this. So have mercy on me. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is implement this. We need to implement initialize. I know I'm going to have a body here, even though I generally have in my editor config that I like to do expression body members, but I know in this case that's not going to be true. Why is the... God, I feel like the indentation, if you notice what it's doing there, like I hit enter, the caret is not in the right spot. It's like it puts it here, and that's not correct. It should put it like, I can't even get it to do now. There we go. And then they go back and it goes there. No, if I tab, that's what it should do. So yeah, that's just flat out wrong. I don't know why it continues to have all these problems with formatting. So, and if I go into my editor config, you'll see that it has, oh, now it brings this up. Now it brings that view up. So who knows? I'm getting all distracted. This is definitely not a tutorial because I'm just going to be jumping left and right and center. See, I got tab. I got 3, but it's like ignoring it until I tell it to format, and then it's not ignoring it. Okay, so with an incremental generator, which is the way you should be doing it, there is a iSource generator interface, but it's highly recommended to use incremental generator because reasons. There is a series of articles that Andrew Locke has been writing, and he explains a little bit about why as well. Mostly the reasoning behind this is that the compiler infrastructure, especially when you're in an IDE, can do a lot of caching, can do a lot of optimization when you're in this incremental kind of pipeline approach to finding what you need, and essentially can do a lot more optimization. Without this, source generators can become quite a burden to do. When you're, I think when you're actually just running the compiler from like .NET Run or .NET Build or something like that, then it's not so much noticeable because you have to build all the stuff anyway at that point. But it's when you're doing this in like an IDE where you need to incrementally do stuff. You only want to do what you really need to do. So if you notice here, we have this provider here, which is this incremental values provider is kind of weird. It's this odd synthesized thing that you don't really get what you need until you really do. Like if you hover over collect here, I don't even know if it has any help here to tell you what you're doing. Yeah, it doesn't. It honestly is one of these things that I still don't quite understand what it is. And because there's not a lot of documentation around it, you just kind of have to go, okay. So, but at some point with what you're doing with your generator, you're going to do a register source output. And that's where you actually will get the stuff that you're looking for and start building code. So again, let's back up a little bit and say, what is it that we're looking to do? If I go into my notes, I will say that we want to look for types and method definitions to see if they have any deconstruct methods. And then we have to look for public, it's going to take some time to get my head around what I want to do and what I, intended to do and all this other stuff. So we want to find types that do not have a deconstruct for all their accessible property getters. So we're only going to look, so for the first pass, all we're going to look for is either type declarations, and hopefully I can filter out records, because records automatically create a deconstruct for you. And to me, there's no point in even trying to add another one. Let's just ignore records out of the gate. And maybe sometime down the future, I can change that. Or method declaration syntax nodes, okay? Because we want to find extension methods that potentially are deconstructs for that as well. So the first thing we're going to do is with this create syntax provider is, if you notice in here, and it's kind of hard to see this whole huge, excuse me, the definition of what this method does, creates a incremental values provider that can provide a transform over syntax nodes. What this is saying is, when you're editing code, the code itself has a bunch of syntax nodes, that are compiled. Well, not compiled. The compiler takes all your text and puts it into a big tree, a compilation unit tree, syntax tree. And in that has all nodes, tokens, trivia, and everything else. Okay. So what this is doing is saying, we're going to tell you all the things that we're finding, and you need to tell us whether you care about this node. In the case of my inline mapper, when I come up here, all I care about is finding attributes that have the names of the attributes that I have. That's it. They still may not be my attributes. I'm going to check that later. But this filters out a whole bunch of stuff that I don't care about. Okay. And the same thing is what we're going to do here. So if we come back to auto deconstruct, actually, let's go here and let's grab this. Okay. And we'll probably change this. We will definitely change this. So we're going to say is syntax target for generation. I like that name. We're going to keep that name. It's a local method that I'm building here. Okay. And so we'll do something like this, and we will change it for our own needs. Okay. So we're looking for either type definitions that are not records, or, and I think in my notes I said method definitions. If it's an extension method, it has the name deconstruct and all the parameters are out. Okay. It's a method or it's a method declaration that is an extension method with the name deconstruct and all of the parameters are out. Now, I don't know if I can actually do that at this point just yet. Okay. So this is just a predicate that you give it a syntax node. You also give it a cancellation token. And then you basically, you can either cancel if you want, or you can say what you do the most of the time. In fact, all the time. I've never looked at the token here in this one because typically what I'm looking for is so fast, there's no point of canceling. So you basically do a predicate. You say, is this thing you're looking for? Yes, no. So in this case, we're saying node is type declaration syntax. And we can say type node. And yeah, you don't know what that is, but you do now. Type node. Now here's where I don't know if you can tell if it's actually a record. And we could, I think we can do this, not type node is record declaration syntax. Okay. And what are you doing here? Use pattern matching. Is not. Oh, yeah, I like, okay, thank you, Smudge. I appreciate you. So I like that better. So it is a type declaration node, but it's not a record declaration. Okay, perfect. So, or node is, let's move this over. No, not a field, method. Declaration syntax, method node, and method node dot identifier value text. How many times have I complained about like what text representation of value token? Yeah. I think we'd want to say is equal to deconstruct, and the number parameters that are outs has to be one less than the number of parameters, because the first one is the this parameter. Okay. So the problem is when you're at the syntax node level, doing things like this is a little hard. Okay. So we may have to wait till we get to the next pass where we can do a little bit more investigation. We want to say method node. Can we get parameter list here? Yes, we can. I really don't want to do a link because you're not supposed to do link here. Count. Can you do count here? No, parameter list. I think you have to go like, yeah, parameters. Okay. Now we can say count. And then the count of how many, yeah. So now we need to say parameter. Parameter dot is, how do you determine whether it's an out or not? Some of these things I don't just remember off the top of my head. So give me a second. I'm going to pause and I'm going to find it, and then I will come back. Okay, I think I got it. It took a while. And you can see here, I put a method here to figure out where is this actually coming from. Syntax visualizer saves my butt again because I come into this, and if I put a there, it should say there's a parameter here. And you'll see in the modifiers we have an out. So, okay, cool. So let's take that out, put this away. And so what I did here is I said, if the node is a method declaration where its identifier is a value text, deconstruct, and the method no parameter list parameters, the number of parameters that have the out keyword syntax kind in its modifier list is any, as long as they have it. If that number is like 3, then that should be equal to the number of parameters minus 1 because we have 4. Now, the one other thing here that I'm also wanting to do is say this should be an extension method. I don't know if there's a way to say this is an extension method at the syntax level. Let us try that. So, and this is what I do. I mean, honestly, when I'm writing source generators, this is what I do all the time. A lot of this is just experimentation and trying stuff and seeing, can I get to the point of where I want to get? So if we do like public static void do, let's just say this string, come on, this, why? String, I think and by the way, this was showing up thing, that's probably a good indicator. Okay. Now, I think if I come into here and I look at the syntax visualizer and I say do, come on. Sometimes you have to like give it a space and then it will figure it out. Okay. So this is a parameter list. It is a parameter. And its modifier should contain the this. So it's first. Okay. So we're going to say here, and let's move this over. Once you have the syntax visualizer up, though, it can be really a big performance hit. And it's, no, go. Sometimes I like IntelliCode, and sometimes I'm like, would you just stop it? Can you tell if it's static? That's another thing I wanted to do. Pin it. Come here. Come on. the method declaration will probably have as modifier static. Okay, so mod if fires itself, any syntax kind static. Come on, syntax kind static keyword, and we want, stop trying to be clever. And it's parameterless, parameters count should be greater than 1. Yes. And method node parameterless parameters 0. That's okay. Now you're being helpful. Modifiers any, except we don't want it to be static. We want it to be this. This keyword. Yes. And, okay, now it should go away. So what did we just do here? We're saying we're going to find a type declaration that is not a record declaration syntax. We also want to find methods that they're static, they have more than one parameter. The first parameter has the this keyword, which makes an extension method. It should be called Deconstruct, and the number of parameters that have the out keyword should be equal to 1 less than the total number of parameters. Okay. Now, we also probably, a deconstruct doesn't make sense unless you actually have more than one. So here we're saying it's got to be greater than 1. So we're saying you need at least 2 parameters. Okay, so that does make sense. Okay. Because if it was just 1, that wouldn't. Which one makes the most sense that we would actually want to be looking for? Probably that the name is deconstruct. Like the way that you're filtering this and the pressure that you're putting on trying to find it probably wants to be a little bit greater and a little bit greater. So we probably want to say we want it to be narrowed down to being a static that is a deconstruct. And now we can start looking at the parameter list. Because if it isn't a static, it's not a deconstruct, then we can just forget it. But once we're starting to get into that realm of, oh, it's a static and it is called deconstruct, then we can start looking at the parameters and saying, do you match what we think is an extension method? Okay, so I think this is a good point to stop with this episode, even though it feels like we didn't really do much of anything. We definitely did. We want to have tests now. We're going to put tests in eventually to get to some point. But the next part is, when we get to transform targets, is we're going to now say, well, you're going to be given syntax nodes that you know is the right type declaration to look for, or it's the right method declaration to look for. So now we can start going into the semantic model, which is much easier to work with, and start saying, this is what we really, really want. Okay. So that's all the time that I have for this episode. Next episode, we'll start building more into this generator. Thank you all for watching. Leave comments and questions below. See you in the next episode.